All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. That's right, we're back in studio. No more playing hooky. We're back. We're here. A reminder, tomorrow on the show, Mike Babcock from TMZ will be joining us. I know he'll have an update on this college admissions scandal, the latest, and not just every regular day folk with a lot of money, but celebrities that are in trouble. So we'll get to that. Also, Johnny Katz from the Review Journal. And, oh, yeah, there's a big basketball game tomorrow, if you didn't hear. UNLV playing San Diego State. So we will obviously talk about that tomorrow. We will have a winner or loser, and that's why we always love having this guy on the line with us to talk a little hoops. He is our hoops guru. That would be Jameison Welsh from Drive Time Sports. Jameison, thanks for coming on. How are you?
What's up, Jameison?
Not a problem, Brian. Thanks for being flexible. I know this is a very difficult week for a lot of people, but I appreciate you being flexible with me during this whole time.
Absolutely. You know, we could always talk about Tucker Carlson later in the hour. Basketball is more important, so let's do that first.
Thank you.
Before we get to UNLV, and we all know it's a big game tomorrow, let's talk a little bit about what transpired last night. The reason why myself and JT were not doing the show yesterday, we wanted to catch the number one team in the country. Shocked by St. Mary's at the Orleans Arena. What did you make of that situation last night and that result?
So here's the situation. St. Mary's is a very well-coached team. That's the first thing. They're very well-coached, and they have a style. And if they're able to force their style on you, it's going to be very difficult for you if you're not hitting shots. Now, if you're hitting shots, it's going to be a close game. But if you're not hitting shots and they're taking 23 to 25 seconds out of every possession, and the one thing about St. Mary's that doesn't get talked about is they don't turn the ball over that much. You know, they have a seasoned point guard in Jordan Ford that runs the show for them. So when you look at their situation, you look at what they do, if they're running their offense, they're getting good looks and making the buckets, and they're slowing the game down, and Gonzaga's not hitting anything, it turned out the way it's going to turn out. And St. Mary's, they do this every year. Now, necessarily they're going to beat Gonzaga every year, but they play this kind of style every year. If things go their way, this can happen, and it did last night.
Yeah, it was, I would say, 90%, maybe more of the crowd were Gonzaga fans, right?
More than that, I didn't see a cluster of St. Mary fans.
No, I think I saw maybe 5 fans.
Well, so when BYU plays, we see the groups of BYU fans. Occasionally, if like San Francisco's in it, you'll see a patch of green somewhere. I didn't see any patch or any section. It was all Gonzaga fans, and when they left for the exits with about like a minute left, that's when it got real. I never expected at all to see that take place. Not at all.
Do you think this bodes very, very poorly for March Madness for the tournament for Gonzaga, and do you think they stay a 1 seed?
No, they're going to be a 1 seed. I think they'll be a 1 seed. I think you have Kentucky if they take care of business in the SEC tournament. I think you have Carolina and Virginia will be the 1 seeds. I think those are the seeds that will be number one. Those are probably the best 4 teams at the moment. Now, that may change with this tournament weekend, but right now those are my 4 1 seeds.
All right, so let's go local now. Let's get to the big game tomorrow. If you were a UNLV fan or just follow UNLV, you know that they're playing San Diego State tomorrow, 2:30. It's the 5 versus the 4 in the quarterfinals of the Mountain West Conference tournament at the Thomas and Mack. I was a little surprised to see that the line opened up at UNLV -1. They're basically saying a pick 'em. I don't think UNLV should be favored in this game. I would put San Diego State -2.5, -3. I do expect it to be a close game, but I think, in my opinion, Jameison, if UNLV, if they're not shooting the ball well, particularly from beyond 3, they have no chance of winning tomorrow.
That, and also they have to get off to a good start. You don't want to play catch-up in a game that like this where San Diego State team has confidence. You know, San Diego State's pretty much returning most of the guys that won the tournament last year. So you want to be able to get off to a good start. You don't want to play catch-up. You don't want to play from behind. And you definitely don't want to let a guy like Jaden McDaniels get going, because if he gets going, he's in for a lot of trouble. So the key for me is getting off to a good start. And like you mentioned, hitting a couple threes early.
So interestingly enough, and by the way, I agree. Interestingly enough, I put a little bit of change on Nevada to win the Mountain West Conference tournament. I do believe they're going to win, but I got to tell you something. A team that scares me more than the winner of the San Diego State UNLV game is tomorrow. The team they're playing is Boise State, a team that lost 6 games by less than 2 points. Ken Pom has them as basically the unluckiest team in all of college basketball. They are a few points away from being the 3 seed in this tournament. Instead, they find themselves in the play-in game. They did take care of business against Colorado State. I got to say, man, if I'm Nevada, if I'm UNR, I'm a little worried about this game tomorrow. Should they be worried?
I don't know about worried is the right word. I mean, Leon Rice is a really good coach. He's probably one of the most underrated coaches we have on the West Coast. He's Mark Few's right-hand guy. So, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a plan that Boise State has. However, this is, Reno's last chance. This is their last run as a core. All these older guys, these fifth-year seniors, transfers and whatnot, this is their last run. So I expect them to be focused. I expect them to be ready, and I expect them to avenge what happened last year when they got blown out in semifinals.
And that's exactly, Jameison, my way of thinking, and that's why I put a little money on Nevada to win the Mountain West Conference tournament for that reason and that reason alone. Besides the fact I think when they're playing their best, they're unbeatable in the Mountain West Conference. I really feel that. If they're playing their best, they should have no problem with Utah State or Fresno State. But, when you get into a hostile environment, the focus isn't there. The key is focus. Will they be focused tomorrow? I'll be very interested to see how they start this game out against Boise State, who played today. How will they play at noon tomorrow? Going back to UNLV, how important is this game tomorrow for Marvin Menzies and his tenure? Do you believe that Desiree Francois has something in her mind that Menzies needs to win at least one game in the Mountain West Conference tournament, or do you think a decision has already been made on whether he comes back next year or not?
Whatever the decision is has already been made. I think the only thing that can maybe sway or change that decision is if they win the whole conference tournament. But I think whatever decision is made is made. I don't think we're going to see a change if he wins or loses tomorrow. I don't think that's going to really affect it. But whatever decision is made, it's made. Now, here's the thing. It's never a good sign when you have people making overtures at your job during the season. There's several guys making, we've heard, from Rick Pitino to Thad Amata, Jason Kidd, pretty much anyone who's out of work right now is pretty much, their name is being thrown in the hat. Now, some of it is to gain leverage for the jobs they really want, and some of it there's actual legit smoke there. So it's very interesting to see what's going to take place. I see your daily odds every day. You've been favoring Marv for last, maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think he comes back. I do. I do think he comes back.
And there's a big possibility of that just because of the financial situation. But again, like I always mention every week, very few coaches want to coach on a lame duck status. Very few want to coach and also recruit with not having security after this next year. That's a huge thing because if you're recruiting against San Diego State, Nevada, Boise State, et cetera, and you're recruiting the same kid, they're going to use the fact that this coach doesn't have a security pass this year. It's very difficult to do your job when you don't have security pass the upcoming season. So it's going to be very interesting to see what takes place in a couple weeks here.
It's so interesting when there are so many people in the media in this town, some writers, some people that are on the air that say, well, this is really only Marvin Menzies' second year. You talk about how young they are. It's just excuse after excuse after excuse. And Jameison, you and I well know the talent that he had on this team last year. He had senior leadership. He had a McDonald's All-American. He had Juice coming out healthy. And everyone talks about Houston this year. When he was healthy with this team, they were 4-4. So I don't think he's the savior that's going to come back next year. Are they going to be a little bit better next year? Sure, absolutely. They're going to have some experience. They're losing Robotham. Say what you want about Robotham. He's still their point guard and their starting point guard.
And he's actually played pretty well, especially from offensively. He's played really well the last 5 or 6 games. He's hitting threes. He's actually getting a lot of assists, and he's not turning the ball over. So he's playing pretty decent.
And you know who else is playing pretty good? Chris Clyburn. And, at times he's very inconsistent with his shooting, but he's been making shots for them. They're going to lose him this year as well. Say what you want about those two guys. Those are still two voids that you need to fill.
No, you're absolutely right. But also, here's the thing. The biggest issue with UNLV basketball is the attendance. The attendance is so bad, it looks like an auxiliary gym on an AAU 7th, 8th place game. That's how bad a lot of home games look. And it's really sad because a lot of these games are on television. So a lot of people around the country are seeing a bunch of empty red seats, and that can't happen. And whether Marvin returns or not, that's a big issue. If you're a basketball school and your program is losing money,
right,
you have a big problem.
And that's why I think that he's gone. The attendance is so bad that there just isn't a lot of excitement in the program. And I've said this 5 or 6 times. UNLV is one of maybe 15 programs in the country that's less than 30 years removed from a national title. The program should not be this dull and unexciting right now.
If you're just joining us, Jameison Welsh from Drive Time Sports. You could also give us a call if you have a question for Jameison, our hoops guru, at 257-5396-702, 257-5396. Jameison, at the beginning of the year, I know UNLV was picked 6th in conference. I said they would finish 5th. I was right. And I think if Marvin Menzies comes back next year with these guys and some recruits, I think best case scenario for them, they finish second or third in the conference and they get invited to the NIT. I just don't see them beating a Utah State team. I don't see them beating San Diego State next year. I think Boise's going to be much better. I just don't see this team making a run to the NCAA tournament next year with the players they have and with the coaching staff they have. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Also, you got to remember, Nevada has a McDonald's All-American that hasn't played that much this year. That's going to be
Jordan
starting
Brown
next year. That's a very good player. So, it's a lot going on. My whole thing is this. If you bring him back next year, you have him on a one-year situation, what saves his job? Does the NIT save his job? Does the tournament appearance save his job? And if it does save his job, is it worth an extension? There's a lot of different things going on here. That's why it doesn't really make sense to keep him past this year, because you really put yourself in an odd position if you're the school. Because you're basically saying he has to make the NIT of the tournament to keep his job. And do they have that kind of talent? Remains to be seen. I don't think so, but it remains to be seen. Really, here's what it comes down to. We'll know a lot more about this situation in the next week or so, because after you don't make the NCAA or the NIT, the other two tournaments you got to pay to play in.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pay $40,000, like I think $60,000 or something like that. And if you got to pay to play, it usually tells you what direction they're going to go into.
That is a good point, and I've heard that from several other people. If they are willing to fork up $50,000, let's just assume, and it's an assumption because I think they could beat San Diego State tomorrow. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but it could happen. But even if they beat San Diego State and lose in the semis, they're not an NIT team. They're not going to get invited to the NIT. They will get an invite to the CBI. Now, if Francois decides to put up that kind of money, which I believe is $50,000 to play in the CBI, I think we all can see the writing on the wall, and that is Menzies is going to come back. But if they decide to not play in the CBI, and we'll find out in the coming days, then I think there's your answer. I don't think he's coming back. Is that a fair assessment?
Especially for a program that tells everyone they don't have it.
Right.
So that's the thing. The program always talks about we're missing money here, we don't have money there, et cetera, et cetera. It's very difficult to fork over $40,000 or $50,000 to a tournament that absolutely doesn't mean anything. You're not really playing for much. It's very difficult to sell that to the people who do the balance sheet at the end of the year. So it's going to be very interesting to see. We'll know more in the next week. This time, we'll know everything we need to know about the future of this program.
Yeah, and there's no way they're paying to play into a tournament like that this year.
I'm not so sure about that.
Especially with a coach that has the heat that Menzies has, and the comments he's made, like the racial epitaphs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I thought you wouldn't bring that up again.
The excuse. Well, to me, they're just excuses.
Yeah. He makes a lot of excuses after losses. We all could agree on that one. He calls his players his babies. You mentioned the racial epithets thing, and he talks about, beating a team in the second half when you get blown out at home by Nevada Reno.
And then his players talk about it. And they get that losing culture, and they start acting that way. Like Amari Hardy, he's supposed to be the leader of this team, and he's saying, well, if Caleb Martin didn't hit that three at the end of the game, we would have won the second half by 8 points. Yeah, but you lost by 17, sir.
I agree. Let's talk about the rumors circulating, Jameison, real quickly here. Thad Matta, Steve Alford, and Jason Kidd seem to be the three names that are still being talked about right now. Patino out the door. If you hire somebody like a Jason Kidd, who has a horrendous reputation, let's just call it what it is. He is a proven wife beater. Okay, he's gotten multiple DUIs. He's gotten into physical altercations with Lawrence Frank, his former assistant coach, and there are a number of other stories. I once interviewed Jim Jackson, who came on the show, who said he went to fisticuffs with Jason Kidd behind closed doors. Doesn't have a great reputation. So if you hire somebody like a Jason Kidd, you can't say, well, we're hiring a goody-good coach, running a clean program, because I don't see that happening here. Then you look at a guy like a Thad Matta, right, who I think is the favorite for this job, who's made it to Final Fours, who I think would turn this program around, and then a guy like a Steve Alford. What do you make of those three names? Do you agree with my assessment of Jason Kidd?
Not all the way. Jason Kidd, it's the reason why he doesn't get the respect as a player that he deserves. A lot of the stuff you just mentioned. There's been a lot of different incidents that don't get talked about as much, but, he's one of the best point guards ever, but he doesn't get talked about or treated like that. As a coach, the coach has been subpar. Like, let's call it what it is. The coaching has definitely been subpar. However, he's a guy that can draw names because, one, parents of players know who he is, and, he's a Nike guy. And, he's a Nike school. He has relationships with AAU programs and places in California, mainly Northern California. So it wouldn't surprise me if he would be named the coach. Plus, you don't have to pay him that much because right now he doesn't have a lot of offers out there to be head coach. There's not a lot of people, knocking down his door to become coach. And he needs a job to kind of rebuild his reputation as a coach.
Right.
So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. However, I don't know if he can recruit. not necessarily meaning players won't come to him, but I don't know if he can actually go on the road and actually recruit on a daily basis or a weekly basis. I don't know if that's a strong suit. No to Steve Alford. Automatic no. Hell no.
Yeah.
No. It's no. We're not going to go any further. Just no. That model would be the best option by far. It's not even close.
I tend to agree with you on that one. Before we switch topics and move to the Pac-12.
Mata is a slam dunk hire for UNLV if they get it done.
Before we move to the Pac-12, let me give you two predictions from you, Jameison. Number one, is Marvin Menzies our coach in 2 weeks? And number two, what happens tomorrow against San Diego State?
I think they lose a close one versus San Diego State, similar to the last home game. It'll be a couple possession game. They even come down to the last shot again. And I do not think Marvin Menzies is a coach next year. If I had to take your odds, I would not mess with the minus 200 or 250 or 400 or whatever you have them at.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, like you said, we're going to find out a week from now probably where this program stands and if Marvin Menzies is still going to be the head coach. So we'll see what happens tomorrow, Jameison. Let's move over to the Pac-12, which also started, I believe, today at the T-Mobile Arena. Dave Rice back in town. How about that? Assistant coach at UW. They are the favorite, if I'm not mistaken, to win the Pac-12 tournament. Probably the best team in conference, too. How do you see this thing going?
So did you and your best friend go to lunch today? Or did you guys catch up?
Who would that be?
Dave Rice.
Oh, you're asking me if I had lunch with Dave Rice? Yeah. The chances
catch up in.
The chances of that are probably about the same of me having lunch with Donald Trump. So it's probably not going to happen. Yeah.
Understood. Washington is the best team in the conference. It's not a great conference. Arizona State has action at winning it. It wouldn't surprise me. It seemed like USC that has a lot of pro talent, a lot of athletes. I mean, USC probably has, at minimum, 3 NBA guys on their team in the next year or two.
Yeah,
so they have talent. It's just, can it come together? Andy Edfield's probably a bottom 10 coach in the country, so I doubt it, but you just never know. When you have talent in a winner-go-home game, you just never know. Things can happen. I think Boatwright went off today, I think, for like 28 points or something like that. So you just never quite know what can happen in a single-game situation. But Washington is the favorite by far.
Can I just bring up Dave Rice here real quick, just to be fair? If Dave Rice gave me a call, who's now the assistant coach at UW, and said, Brian, I want to have lunch with you, I would absolutely say yes, because I think Dave Rice is a good guy. Let me just be fair, just straight out. He's a really nice guy, seems like a good father, good husband, never personal, and I think he's a good dude. Yes, did I criticize his coaching a lot? Absolutely, I did. But I'll tell you one thing, Jameison, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I've told a few other people this in the last several weeks. I would choose Dave Rice over Marvin Menzies. You know why? Because, first of all, whether he recruited or his assistants recruited, they recruited better players. That's number one. Number two, he won more games in a much more difficult conference. Number three, I always gave Dave Rice credit for this. His out-of-conference schedule was really, really good, and I respect that.
Oh, definitely. No, I agree with everything you said. But his assistants were very good. If you look at his assistants, Ryan Miller is probably a top 10 assistant in the country. He always has talent wherever he goes. He's always getting NBA kind of guys. Todd Simon speaks for himself. We don't have to go into any more details with that. So, he had really good assistants for his tenure. But, yes, I got to give Dave Rice credit. He did schedule really, really good out-of-conference games. Went to Hawaii, played in Mount Invitational, did home and homes with Carolina. So he did do that. However, unfortunately, the job just wasn't good enough that he did over 4.5 years. With that being said, though, it would not be surprising to see him cutting down a piece of the net come Saturday night. All
right, fair enough. I think we have a question for Jameison Welsh. Unfortunately, Johnny, I cannot read everything that's in there. So why don't you go on the air? Go on the air, Johnny, who is our master producer. Johnny, we had a caller. Why don't you tell us what he wanted to ask Jameison?
So the caller just wanted to mention J.C. Jacobson in terms of potential coaches. That was the only comment. So.
Good question. All right, what do you think about that, Jameison?
I have never heard Casey Jacobson as a coach before. He's great on television. And
great player.
Yeah, he's one of the best shooters I've ever seen in high school and college, but I've never heard of him as a coaching prospect before. I think he'd probably be a good assistant first, but, yeah, I've never heard of that as a coach. I never even heard of that as an option.
But would he beat Jason Capono in a three-point shooting contest?
Well, I'll put it this way. Casey Jacobson, for a period of time, was the best shooter I've ever seen live. I've ever seen in person.
I'm going to say Reddick is for me. It's Reddick.
Well, no, I'm saying actually live, like in person, in high school, college. I saw him at Glendora just shoot the lights out, and I've never seen that anywhere else. So
I was going to say legend.
But with that being said, I've never heard of that as a coach. That's an interesting name, but he's really good on TV. I don't see him leaving television.
Yeah, I don't either. But again, the three names that we've heard that have some buzz are Alford,
and he looks the part.
Alford, Thad Matta, and Jason Kidd. I think those are the three options that they're looking at right now based on your information, based on my information, and we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. Again, if you have a question for Jameison Welsh from Drive Time Sports, he is our hoops guru. Now would be the time to give us a call. Don't be afraid to ask him a question on the air, by the way, at 257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the program and ask Jameison a question. It could be in regards to UNLV hoops. It could be in regards to anything basketball related. Again, that number to call, 257-5396.
All right, Jameison, is there a team that Houston does not match up with right now?
Houston Rockets? Or
no, Houston Cougars.
Well, here's the thing. They are so well coached. I don't see a bad matchup for them because they're going to be in a lot of different. They're going to be in a lot of different matchups, a lot of different games. They're going to be fine. They're a team that if you get them at good enough odds, you can take them to win the whole thing. That's how good they are. And Calvin Sampson is my coach of the year.
Yeah, me too.
Spears had a hell of a year, but Calvin Sampson, no one expected Houston to be in the top 10.
I mean,
no one.
They just beat Cincinnati on the road by 15. They were called for 29 fouls. Cincinnati shot 35 free throws, and they still won the game by 15. They've got five guards that can all play. They can all shoot threes, and they've got 4 or 5 big guys. I think outside of, I really don't see one team that they cannot beat.
And they have great coaching line. Here's the thing: in March, you need good guard play. You need coaching. You got to be able to make adjustments. You got to have guards that can make plays, and you got to have bigs that can rebound and do their jobs. And they have all. They checked the box on all those. Last year, they were a lucky shot away from probably getting to the Elite Eight, if not Final Four. That's how good they were last year, and they're even better this year.
Yeah, their team is much more talented this year, and they don't have a Rob Gray just taking over games.
One thing I love about Las Vegas is it gives you options, right? And we have a lot of basketball options tomorrow. So, Jameson, let me ask you this. We got 4 Pac-12 games tomorrow at T-Mobile Arena. We have 4 Mountain West Conference games at Thomas & Mack. We have 4 WAC games at the Orleans Arena. You have 3 simultaneous college basketball games, tournaments going on at the same time. So where will Jameson be tomorrow?
Whew, that's a great question. I may sneak into the Pac-12 for a game or so, but I'm going to check out the WAC for the first time in a long time since the other 2 conferences are on a down year. I'm actually going to check out the WAC more this year than a year because, one, usually the Pac-12 has a couple NBA players that are going to be top 5 picks or whatever. That's not the case this year. But secondly, the WAC has a couple good teams. New Mexico State's a really good team. Grand Canyon is going to be one of the next schools on the West Coast to get some buzz. They're a new school. They have a lot of funding. They're fans. If you've never been to a Grand Canyon game or never seen it on TV, they might have the best fan experience in their gym.
It's a production, kind of like the Knights.
It's like Cameron Indoor, but in Phoenix. So yeah, it's insane. It's insane how much energy they have. But yes, Grand Canyon's pretty good. New Mexico State's pretty good, and Cal Baptist is a new D1 school. I'm kind of interested to see what they get because they do have some talented kids on that team.
Jameson, at what point does Gonzaga enter the Pac-12?
Never. They don't have a football program. They will never. The Pac-12 is about money, not about anything else. They're about funds. So they will never, ever join the Pac-12. If anything, it wouldn't surprise me if a team from the Pac-12 goes independent and goes to the WCC for basketball reasons. But Gonzaga will never leave the WCC. They have all the advantages. They had a triple bye in their own tournament. That will never happen in the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. And I heard that the reason why Few didn't leave the conference to go to the Mountain West, he pretty much threatened, this is what I heard allegedly, he threatened the commissioner and said, we're going to leave unless you give us a bye in the West Coast Conference tournament. Absolute joke. I love the way the Mountain West Conference does it. I love the fact that Nevada and Utah State have to play 3 games if they want to win the championship. Jameson, you always do a great job, my friend. Look forward to catching up with you next week, and maybe we'll get some news on UNLV and the coaching situation. I'm sure we'll have it by next week. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thanks a lot, Jameson.
There you go. Jameison Welsh from Drive Time Sports joining us. Our hoops guru. He does a fantastic job. We didn't even get to the NBA with him, but we got to get to some other stuff when we come back. I really didn't get a chance to talk about the double standards when it comes to the media. And, everyone assumes, fake news, CNN, MSNBC. Well, what about Fox News? We're going to talk. I want to get into a little bit more detail in regards to my opinions on Tucker Carlson. And I'll ask JD if he thinks Tucker should be fired. I want to go into a little bit more detail, the comments that he made. And I simply put, I don't think the guy should have a job. if you're going to go on the air and say the things that he said, and we will get into that, I don't think he should have a job. We'll also take your phone calls on this at 257-5396. Again, that number to call, 702-257-5396. We'll get to Tucker Carlson in just a few minutes. You are listening to The Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN.